everybody, and welcome to the Life Report. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Bruce, and with me is my fearless and powerful co-host, Ashley Miller.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in.
Today we are joined by Shelley Gertz and Julie Breedlove, who are some good friends who have jumped in to tell us more about the family restoration ministry we have at Watermark, and excited about some of the things that are going on with that ministry. Really, for the past probably 20 years, churches have been engaging in foster care and adoption ministry with a real emphasis on the adoption side of things. And so as families have gotten more and more involved in adoption ministry and in bringing children without families home, more of us have realized, myself included, that many of these children still have biological families that want to care for them, that love their children, but who lack the resources in order to meet their needs. And so we have really prioritized kind of swinging the pendulum back towards the middle of caring for children who are in foster care, caring for the 100,000 plus kids in the United States who are waiting to be adopted, and the millions across the world who are waiting to be adopted, but also thinking about the exponentially more children all across the world who have biological families who could care for them if we were to prioritize the biblical precedent of family restoration. And so Shelley and Julie have an amazing testimony and ministry that they lead with us, and we're excited to hear more from them. Guys, why don't y'all introduce yourselves real quick, and then we'll get started.
Okay, thanks so much for having us on. This is really exciting. My name is Shelley Gertz, and I am married to Mark, have 4 kids, and have been working with family restoration for a couple of years now. Bruce and I talked back when, very soon after he came to Watermark, about just a shared passion for helping really families stay together if possible. I have my last child, my youngest, is adopted. She came to us when she was 5, and a lot of my passion for this came from just watching that hurt, her having to deal with the loss of her biological family. And so really feel strongly that if we can help keep families together, that we ought to at least try. And even when we can't, that there's still a lot of people that we can love and support and disciple.
Love it. Yeah, that's great. Julie?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name's Julie Breedlove, and my husband and I have been married for 25 years this year, and we have 6 kids, and our youngest 3 are adopted internationally, and we have had them, we got them all at once, so we went from a family of 5 to a family of 8, but we have had been a family of 8 for 10 years, and so just, like Shelley, we have seen, the blessings that come from, incorporating and people and blending your family, but we've also seen some of the hardships too that come along with that. And so, yeah, just like Shelley, we want to do everything that we can to try to keep biological families intact, and that can't always, we can't always make that happen, obviously, but if we can, we really want to support people. And a lot of these families, really lack, they lack tools, they lack support, they lack all kinds of stuff. And so, we just really want to help families have, do everything that we can to help them stay together if possible, because I think that's, we've just seen, both ways. We've seen biological personally, and we've seen adopted personally, and there's, just God is all over both of that. But we just want to do our part to help people keep their families together if possible.
Yeah. I think there's definitely been that shift or that trend of recognizing that if all we're doing is focusing on adoption or focusing on foster families, which admittedly is just going to be an enduring need as we continue to respond to the biblical mandates to care for vulnerable children in these families. But if that's all that we do, we're always going to be doing that work. And so we have an opportunity to go upstream to equip the church, and especially those people who, I don't know about y'all, but I continue to come across people that just go, gosh, I could never foster a child knowing that they would someday, go back to their biological family. And it would just pain me too much to let a child go like that. And so I hear that quite a bit, and can appreciate that people want to be invested in the lives of these children. They want to attach. We're asking them to attach. And yet, again, we want to prioritize what God prioritizes, and we want to be a part of a reconciliation kind of ministry, or restoration kind of ministry, whereas previously it's, I know that my friends with Child Protective Services, my friends at child placing agencies, and I myself have always used sort of we want to prioritize reunification. And that just seems like such a short-sighted goal, when what we could be prioritizing is really holistic restoration. And so just to get us started, Shelley, Julie, either one of y'all jump in on this, but why are you passionate about restoring families? Shelley, you shared a little bit about your experience with your daughter, but anything specific that's just kind of come out as we've developed this ministry?
What I always say, and I feel like I'm more convinced of the longer I work with these ladies, is so many of them are truly grown-up versions of the kids we're also passionate about saving, and no one stepped in to help. And so I think to a large degree, I feel that I think that a lot of people just don't realize that the kids, the love we have for them, one of the ways we can show that love is by loving their parents. They really do want to have and need healthy families. And so in addition to just seeing the harm that it did to my own daughter, I think the more I've gotten to know the ladies, I do realize that they're hurting and they need help.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bruce, just, what you were saying about it's, when we initially think about foster care or adoption, we think about, oh, well, I could never take a child in and let them go again. Seeing the biological family as kind of the enemy or not worthy of raising their kids or whatever. And there may be situations where they shouldn't be raising their kids, but I definitely have just, I guess, matured in that thought process, and really see the value of being willing to take in children for a time with the hope that their family can be restored, versus taking in children with the hope and desire that my family would get to keep them. So, I mean, I understand it from both ends, but just having done this for a while now, I definitely see, how we should be pursuing reconciliation for biological families as much as we can. But yeah, to piggyback on Shelley, just in our own families, and just in the shorter time that I've been working with some of these mothers and dads that have had their kids removed, I mean, you just really come to understand that they love their children. They are desperate for their kids. And even though they don't have the tools, and they're, often just enslaved by drugs or alcohol or some other addiction, or but yet they really do want to parent, and they don't want their kids taken away. And yet, they're caught in this where they, want to raise their own kids, but they just don't have the tools. And so, whereas when I was further from this ministry, it was easy to just kind of paint them as, well, they're just bad parents, or they can't do it, they don't want to do it, but they really do. And so if we can help them get healthy, and then, they can do it on their own. I mean, they have to be willing, of course, but anyway, but yeah, just seeing, just kind of watching some of that up close has really kind of helped me develop, just like you're saying, Shelley, a love for these moms and dads, because they're hurting too, and they want to do the right thing, just like we all do.
Yeah, Julie, I think that's great. I think I kind of woke up to this reality when we adopted our youngest 3 adopted kids. So we've got obviously a bunch of kids, 9 kids, and 5 of them are adopted. But our youngest 3 came to us. They were from their biological mom has 7 kids, none of which are in her care. And I've heard people say this before, where they've said something to the effect of, I'm ending the cycle of abuse and neglect, or of addiction or whatever for this child. And in some ways we are ending the cycle for that one child, but that doesn't necessarily prevent a mom or a dad from continuing to have more children. And have just realized, like, gosh, we have got to go upstream and address some of these needs. And so just obviously very passionate about how we engage further in in going upstream and meeting those needs to ensure that it's not just ending the cycle for a child, it's ending the cycle for an entire family that we're addressing.
Yeah, on that note, would you guys just jump in and explain to our listeners what Path to Restoration really is?
Yes, Path to Restoration is a 10-week parenting class that we are offering to moms who have lost their children to the CPS system or are at risk of losing their children to the CPS system. And basically, most moms have to do a parenting class as part of their service plan. So ours is going to fill that part of their service plan. They come and they get matched with a mentor, and they come every Monday night for 10 weeks and learn things all the way from how to deal with their own hurts to who they are or who God says they are, and as well as just kind of going through some of the more tangible issues they face, such as domestic violence and how to deal with anger. And then, of course, we touch on a lot of parenting issues, especially parenting a child from trauma, and how to discipline in an effective and healthy way. So a lot of it is about them becoming healthy themselves, but obviously touches on parenting as well. But we really do want to make sure that they are getting the tools to become healthy so that they can parent in a healthy way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, what separates us, from some other great, more secular organizations that are trying to help is that we're able to talk to these moms and dads about who they are in Christ. We're able to show them that they have value and worth because God created them and that he has a plan for them. And so, that's, a great thing that our mentors get to do. Those who choose to have one of our mentors get to be reminded, get to be prayed with. And some of these people have probably never been prayed for or prayed with, and get to be just reminded of who they are and that they're loved and that they have value, which, a lot of these people feel so worthless and so, hopeless in a lot of ways.
And they get a sense of community. These ladies, for the first time, get to see that they're not alone, that there's people that are walking this road with them, and they really do connect and get to develop relationships that hopefully they can grow healthy together and establish some friendships for the first time that are healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we try to, it's not just about, hey, can I pray for you or read this Bible passage to you? We really want to be friends with these people, with these ladies, and help them and meet them where they're at. And, we've had moms that have, one lady has 6 kids also and no beds. And so we rallied the troops and got, beds and, brainstorming on childcare and jobs and, try to do really practical stuff as well. But, just so that, again, like Shelley was saying, at the community part, you're not alone, but there's people that want to help you, people that are going to, and then not only help you, but try to help you help yourself, help you get the tools to, problem solve on your own when and if that time comes.
That is so awesome. So all that being said, what have you guys learned about these women that maybe viewers and listeners might have like preconceived notions, like you threw out there earlier, like, oh, they're just bad parents. You've already touched on this a little bit, but is there anything else you've learned about the women and you would want somebody on the outside just to take into consideration?
Oh my gosh. The first time I went through the parenting course, within literally 15 minutes of spending time with these ladies, I was overwhelmed with a sense of love for them. And just struck by how much they loved their kids. I think I had, as I'm sure a lot of people view, that they're not good parents and that they were placing their own needs above their kids' needs. And that was completely turned on its head. They really came in with an intense desire to heal and to do what they needed to do to get their kids back. They love their kids just like I love mine. And I don't think I anticipated that. And then the other part is just how much we can learn from them. It really, what we hope to develop is a true friendship that can last years. We want to walk with these ladies for as long as they'll let us. And we really do value the relationship. They're not a project. They actually are people that we want to connect with in a really meaningful way. So I just learned that I love them a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Julie, you so you're kind of our point person in the courts, like physically you're present there in the courtroom. Would you speak a little bit about just kind of what your observations have been as you've in some ways been a fly on the wall and in other ways started to engage in some of their stories to help them as, you know, they're standing in front of a judge and getting, you know, either hey, this is what you need to do or this is what you're not doing, and getting referred to us.
So that has been such a wonderful experience and such an eye-opening experience too, to be able to do that. But yes, so I'll go down to court on Mondays and listen to the different parties. I'm in a great, we have a great connection with a court program that really has a lot of resources to help people overcome addiction. And so specifically for CPS parents who are trying to overcome addiction so they can get healthy again. And so, you know, it is just such a gift and a blessing to watch how they go through this program, and they receive correction. They get to be proud of themselves, and they have these milestones that they have to achieve. And then once they have reached a milestone, then they do kind of a little presentation to whoever's in the courtroom, and that is just, I mean, such a great thing to watch, and just to hear them say how many days they've been sober and what they've learned and how they've, you know, gotten job skills or, you know, some parenting skills that they've been picking up or talking to their mentor about, or, so it really is, it's just, a blessing to watch and to be a part of somebody, you know, digging deep, and working hard to try to get their kids back and to try to just get healthy themselves. But, you know, I mean, you also do get to see the other side of it too. Some, you know, when there is a mistake, you know, that just how hard it is for them to feel like there's hope. You know, we, you know, a lot of us who walk closely with the Lord and, you know, have had secure home lives, we don't necessarily appreciate how hard it is to get knocked down and get back up. You know, we had help getting up every time we got knocked down, and these ladies haven't had that. And so, you know, you just inside you just want to give them the, you know, will them to, you can do this, you know, how can I make you understand you could do this? But you have to let the Lord work and let them figure it out for themselves. And but just by being there and loving on them has been just so fun. And you know, and there are patterns too. So I mean, I've enjoyed getting to learn. I mean, I'm really just I cannot take in enough as I'm down there and listening to, and it just helps me grow in wisdom and how to help the next person. Oh, I've heard somebody say that before, and you know, I'm suspecting that that's something that you say when you want to, you know, get out of something here, but we're not going to accept that anyway, you know. But just learning how to do it in a loving way. So it really is. They're working hard, and they have a lot to do. I mean, a lot for just any person, much less a person that is, you know, doesn't have a ton of tools. But they have to report, they have to do drug testing, they have got to keep all kinds of stuff organized and go to meetings, and so we're asking a lot of them, and they really are trying hard. So that's been an encouraging thing about this, and so I love that we can come alongside them and do what we can to support them as they're working this hard.
Yeah, that's awesome. It seems like a lot of the time the churches are pretty well skilled at coming alongside them, maybe after the fact or after their children are already in the system, or even in some cases already been adopted. Why do you think it is that we tend to focus on the foster care, the adoption side of things, rather than prevention efforts?
Well, unfortunately, sometimes, and I'm very pro adoption. As I mentioned, I've got my own adoption. So please don't take these as negative comments on adoption and foster care. But, you know, I mean, the reality is sometimes we're meeting our own needs for wanting to fulfill our own families, to create, you know, the family unit that we think we want. So sometimes we're actually trying to have kids, join our families. And then other times, I think we, by nature, it's really super easy to have a compassionate heart towards a cute little kid. And so our hearts are normally drawn towards a kid in need. We've got to help them. And I think that the gap that I would love to see start to be filled is that to love that kid means to love their biological parents. Even if they can't be safe enough to live with them, we can at least get them to be healthy so that they don't lose them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Julie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, I think this is a natural, I think God is working in the hearts of our churches and, our nation. We have relatives that were kind of wary of our adoption, right? Because they didn't want us to mess up our family. And what if we brought in somebody that was going to, we couldn't control or whatever. And so this is just kind of a natural widening of this whole love your neighbor circle that we should be involved in from the get-go. But so obviously the children that we see as victims of a bad parent, but really, as we grow in our love and our understanding of, what happens to people and what the shoes that they've walked in, then we do realize that, yeah, they may not be a great parent, but they're worthy of love, and they are the least of these, just like the children are. So I think it's, the church just continuing to grow and in its understanding and just like we all individually, I'll be just totally honest. When we first adopted internationally, part of the reason I wanted to adopt internationally is because I didn't know what it would look like if we adopted locally, or would I have to deal with biological relatives from this child, and what would that even look like? I didn't know what to think of that. You know what I mean? So that was one of the factors I considered when we considered international. And I hope y'all don't judge me for that, but that's where I was back then. And so, but praise the Lord that He's brought me to where I am now, where I don't fear that. I'm more open to, hey, let's help the people that God's brought into our path. And if that means children and their parents, then so be it. Yeah, absolutely. We want to, and other relatives or whoever may be involved. I think it's just a kind of just a growing understanding. At least that's how it's been for me. And I kind of see it growing that way in our church too.
Yeah, I definitely didn't get the sense of being, I take that back. I think we all just kind of have that sense of, the biological parents have abused or neglected a child. And so that's what has brought that child into the foster care system or to need to be adopted to begin with. And we were talking with a friend, Dominique White, about her story of having an unexpected pregnancy, actually two. And she was sharing about how when she went to place her child for adoption, to make an adoption plan, that she was really giving herself as like the worst case, like sort of the worst parts of herself, right? This sort of irresponsible girl who had gotten pregnant outside of marriage, right? That's what's being presented to this adoptive family, who's then turning around and giving this picture of a this picture perfect kind of family that can adopt this child and care for and provide for. So it's like we get the worst parts of these biological families, and then we perceive ourselves in sort of this best light. And I think too, the thing that has really convicted me has been how we've taken God's word, how we've taken biblical references to adoption, and how we've kind of misconstrued what they actually mean. And so early on, when I was involved in foster care and adoption ministry, there was lots of kind of rhetoric around the concept of foster care being the tangible gospel, and adoption being like the gospel of God played out here on earth. It's just like this physical presence. And, initially I kind of used those same terms and that same kind of language. But a couple of things have dawned on me over time. One is that the gospel is the tangible gospel. There's not like some other gospel out there that better explains the gospel than Jesus's life, death, and resurrection. And then secondly, that when we call adoption or foster care this tangible gospel, we end up with kind of this weird savior mentality and rescue mentality that turns us into the saviors and turns their biological parents into the equivalent of Satan, which is not the illustration that God makes anywhere in Scripture. And so it's something that's just been refined in me over time as I've kind of gone, okay, I'm fostering, I'm caring for vulnerable children, and now I'm adopting and I'm caring for vulnerable children. And then it was like, oh, but I know their families. I see them at weekly visits. Who's caring for them? How could I care for them? And just not really having the avenues to do so. And so it's exciting to see y'all lead the way and kind of lead the charge in building these on-ramps to really engage us further. Just kind of expound a little bit more on this. How do people typically perceive these women or the men that y'all have come in contact with as they've either come into classes, Shelley, or you've seen them walk into court? Like, just kind of give us a sense of like, what are some of the stereotypes that are either not true or that are supported by, how they dress or what they say, or, the types of things that they're dealing with, so that we can hopefully have an accurate picture. Because what I definitely realize is that these are parents who do love their kids and want to be able to parent their kids, but then they also carry all kinds of baggage from typically bondage to their sin, to their addiction. So just, what are some of the perceptions that you have, and just, what have they really been like, talking like face to face?
I would just say from the court side of it, just coming in, I mean, they don't have a lot, they don't look like the lawyers and the judge and the CASA workers. They are, they come in and they're doing their best to look the best they can, but they don't have, suits and dresses and all that kind of stuff. And I would just say they're just like, a lot of other people in that, some of these moms you talk to, and they are sharp. I mean, they are smart and with it. And then sometimes there's somebody that is a little bit slower or something like that. And so they, it's just like regular people. They run the gamut. And but a lot of them are just the ones that I see in court for sure are trying to get out of just the addiction bondage that they're in, and making good strides. But they're just engaging and friendly, and they have their moods just like we do. I mean, I can tell some days they're a little bit down, and some days they're upbeat and excited about their progress. And so just very much like anybody else you would know, but you can just tell that they haven't been they don't have as much as we do. Of course, we have a ton. So anyway, what do you think, Shelley?
Well, I think the other thing is, I think the big stereotype that was a shift for me was, I think the stereotype is they're an abuser. And I think that the reality is they're a victim. And in our parenting classes, all of them have suffered domestic violence in their lives. All of them have suffered physical, emotional, or sexual abuse. And so they actually are also victims to their own life situations. But like Julie said, you wouldn't know that from first glance. I mean, they're funny, and they're fun people to be around. And I think to some degree, maybe people think they're mean, uneducated, all of those things. They're not. Many of them are very, very, some of them in the parenting class even looked really put together and just like anybody else. And we've had members at our church be the people that are involved with CPS cases. And so it can really run the gamut. But I think the biggest one is just that I think I thought of them as abusers and that they were really victims.
Yeah, I think the thing that struck me was just sort of that idea of like, this is somebody who just woke up one morning and decided to abuse or neglect their child. Like that they're just ingrained that way. And really the reality is that these are people who have been abused and have grown up in, oftentimes single parent homes or homes where addiction, like this is a generational cycle, not just, some bratty kid who decided they didn't want to listen to their parents and, graduated from high school or dropped out of high school and started using drugs. Is like, people don't just use drugs for the sake of using drugs typically. Typically it is sort of they're using drugs to numb the pain from past trauma that they just don't feel like they have any control over. And so they really struggle to not only care for themselves, but to care for a child who very much needs them to be somebody that's dependable, that's able to provide, and that's able to protect them and kind of be an example and show them the way. And they don't have those skills because they also don't have that kind of community that's going to wrap around them and love them well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's one of the things that we, are really working with them on is you've got to get away from the people that are not for you. They're for themselves, and they're going to use you, or they're going to lead you down a bad path. And so that's where hopefully, they can change communities, because some of them, sometimes they're isolated, sometimes they have community, it's just not good community. But yeah, absolutely.
So with all of these things considered, what would you guys say to like our listeners? Like, how would you tell people to get involved?
Well, if you go to Watermark, we'd love for you to serve with us. We always need mentors. And if you feel like that's something you'd like to do, to step in with one of these ladies, we would really sincerely love to talk to you about it. And but even if you don't, we'd love prayer. We'd love for people just to be praying that God would bring the moms that need it to our ministry, and that more churches would have a passion for it, for helping the biological families. And especially during this time, there's really just a lot of need for prayer for at-risk families in general, because the staying at home, there's no one there to watch after and see the neglect or the bruises or anything on the kids, and there's more domestic violence happening. And so keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and step in if necessary. But prayer is a big one right now. I really feel a burden for the at-risk families that we're serving right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I would just add, if you if you don't think mentoring or is something that you have the bandwidth for, or just if you have a resource of some kind. I mean, we're always problem solving with our moms and dads. Like one of them may need a pair of glasses so she can get her driver's license, or just things like that. And so if you have a resource that might be something that some of these families could use at one time or another, that would be awesome. And you could just let us know what that is, and like maybe you can help with braces someday, or maybe I don't know what it would be, or tutoring for a student that's struggling or something like that. We all have the things that are gifts and time, talent, and treasure. But just letting us know an area that you can provide a resource should the need arise would be great.
I think one area that I just went, gosh, we've got so many people that are saying, gosh, I'm not going to foster adopt, or I'm not in a place, or I can't, or, my husband's not on board, my wife's not on board, or whatever it might be. And people who are well-resourced who are going, but I want to help, I want to do something. And so this is such a tremendous way that tons of people could be involved in walking alongside these women and men. And when you think of just sort of all the intersections that these families kind of rely on in regards to the different systems involved in our lives. So you've got like the judicial system, and the mental health system, and the medical community, and schools, and courts, and transportation, and the housing authorities, of just the number of different ways that these people, these families kind of go, hey, I need help, and I maybe don't know how to ask for it. But I'm willing to have somebody come alongside me Certainly, I would encourage people to be thoughtful about how we help so that we don't get into kind of enabling types of relationships where we actually end up perpetuating some issues, because we've experienced this with some moms and dads where it was like actually, caring for their child only actually like inhibited or helped them to kind of go, okay, well, you're taking care of my child, and that was the only thing that was actually keeping me from not making some of these choices. And so now I'm going to go get high or use or whatever it may be. And so it is tragic how we have cast aside many of these adults and just said, you know what, we really just love you for your child, as opposed to we want to walk alongside you, we want to see you restored. And building a relationship, Shelley, you mentioned it earlier, and I think it's really key of just saying, hey, this isn't a project that we're trying to introduce people to. This is a loving relationship with another person created in the image of God, where we just go, hey, you've got value. And so how can we help? Is it transportation? That's often a need. Shelley, I know there's some moms that we've engaged with that's kind of been like, okay, what's the best way? Maybe share some of those experiences of moms who are coming to class, trying to get their parent service plan kind of box checked off so they could continue to move towards restoring their family, but just could not get there because they literally didn't have transportation.
Transportation is a huge issue for these ladies. They many of them live in South Dallas or way far away from where our parenting class was, and the parenting class, keep in mind, is required for their service plan to get their kids back, and so they're trying to make it a priority that they have to take a bus, and they're on 3 different bus routes to get there, and so some of them it took 2 hours for them to get to our course. And then when they got to where the bus stop was, they had to walk. And a couple of nights it was raining, so they were 2 hours on a bus and then had to walk in the rain to get to our parenting course. And this is just, first of all, these ladies oftentimes, a lot of times they're living in survival mode. So planning and all the things that we take for granted is not necessarily, it doesn't come naturally to them. And so some of them realize, oh my gosh, I have to work from 4 to 6. What am I going to do? How am I going to get there? So one of the ways, transportation, if you can offer to help pick up and take people places, that's a huge gift. We would love just to have phone numbers of people who love to drive and would be willing to pick up ladies and take them where they need to go. The mentors do that quite a bit when they can. But the need is pretty huge. So that's an example of how life's just hard. And those are needs. We have cars. We have the ability to use them and to get where we need to go. And it's something we take for granted. But it would be a huge blessing to some of these ladies.
Shelley or Julie, would y'all speak just real quick as we kind of wrap up what the commitment to mentor somebody looks like, and maybe has looked like even for some of our mentors kind of walking alongside some of those moms?
Okay. So if somebody wants to mentor, what we typically tell them to expect is a once a week face-to-face meeting, if possible. Obviously, in today's environment, that's a little bit challenging, but take the virus out of it. We do really want them to have a face-to-face meeting. A lot of times that can be meeting a transportation need while they're doing it, or they can meet at a Starbucks or a Watermark or wherever they want to, and then phone calls and texts throughout the week. We do want them to attend any court dates they have. That's just an easy way for us to support and love these moms and dads, and to know that a lot of times they're just alone. Everybody else has somebody with them, and then the mom or dad is by him or herself. And so we want to sit through court with them if possible. And the other thing is we just tell them, like I said earlier, that there's no end to the relationship unless they end it. So you really do have to be willing to pursue and develop the relationship for as long as they want it. We don't want to be a source of abandonment to these ladies. The mentors who I feel like just knock it out of the park are the ones that are picking up their ladies and going to church with them on Sundays. And even going, I have some mentors who are so fabulous. I mean, they're going to the other ladies' church as opposed to making it about the church they like to go to. So one of ours just goes every week with her mentor to the church that she goes to. And then, starting to take them in and even pick them up with their kids in tow and taking them places. And just like we said, developing a relationship that is, yes, I'm going to include you in my life and I'd love to be included in yours to the extent that it's safe. So it really can. I mean, the minimum requirements are that face-to-face, text, phone calls, and we let it go as big as you want it to. Within, we always talk a lot about boundaries. We don't want to enable. We don't want to give in a way that ends up making them dependent. We want to give them the resources they need so they can help themselves long term. But that friendship and that relationship and letting them see what it looks like to have a healthy family unit. That means sometimes if you can have them in your home on Christmas Eve, that's a great way to show them what it looks like to have fun while you're with your family. So that's kind of a long answer to it's loose.
Yeah, absolutely. And and then, just from what I do, I like to, part of what I'm doing at court is to love on them on Mondays when I see them come in, hug their necks and, pray with them or just give them an encouraging word, see how they're doing. But I'm also there to hear what is, how they're doing. Are they passing their drug test? Are they, are they reporting every day like they should? And then I can report some of that back to their mentors and say, hey, would you really, remind so-and-so that she needs to call in when she's going to, miss an appointment. She really help her to work on communication. Anyway, so the mentors are not alone. We're doing everything we can to give them, ideas on what to help, their mom or dad, what they're struggling with, just from the court perspective, so that they can go, oh yeah, and that can be something that they, talk about that week or whatever. So, and, it definitely is a community aspect to the whole thing. Shelley and I and others are, we're staying on top of all the mentors and mentees and throwing in our 2 cents, and we brainstorm together. And, we've done a lot for this lady. Maybe we need to pull back and just see, try to give her the tools to make some good choices herself or to figure things out herself, so it's never a solo thing. We're really working and walking closely with the mentors and stuff. So, which is so cool just to see the body at work like that. I love it.
That is so awesome. Thank you, ladies, again for joining us and just sharing your stories and insights. We're really excited for what's ahead for those vulnerable children and just the families through Family Restoration's efforts. And to our listeners, if maybe you've experienced your children being removed into foster care, or you're at risk for that, or maybe you know somebody who is, or if you're just interested in foster care or adopting through foster care, we highly encourage you guys to reach out to us at familyrestoration@watermark.org. You can also contact us there if you're interested in getting your church involved and learning more about how you guys can be a light to those families in your community. Also, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Family Restoration. We just want to continue prioritizing the needs of these children and their families. So, until next time, and until every child is home.